Okay, so in the last slide, I talked about how a monopoly might be created by the government. Um, so now I want to talk about why, like, as one of many possible reasons, uh, a monopoly might form. But let's talk about why the government might want to do that. And if you're really curious about this, kind of late now, but Journal Spot, Journal 6, the journal about the um, R&D, uh, goes does a really good job of kind of explaining this, or you see it for yourself more than anything. But why would a government create a monopoly? Okay. So every time the government issues a patent or a copyright, it's essentially limiting the number of people who can sell that good, at least for a time period. Patents and copyrights can have expiration dates. Okay. So we said earlier that market's not going to be pretty efficient because monopoly violates at least this, potentially all four. So why would the government interfere to make something Pareto inefficient? Okay, is it more equitable to create a patent? No, not really. In the sense of like, so if there's a patent, the producer has full control over the price. They can charge exorbitant prices for life-saving medication because you're essentially a captive market. And this has happened. This is I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago. This guy Martin Shkreli, he had a monopoly on a particular AIDS medication and also I think a diabetes medication too. Um, but he had this monopoly on an AIDS medication, an antiretroviral drug that was very inelastic demand curve. Okay, so you had a monopoly with a highly inelastic demand curve. Um, so he could afford to raise the price, and his revenues would increase. Um, so he did just that. He raised it like 30 times what the old rate was. He ended up going to jail for not for that, but for other reasons. Um, he also bought a Wu Tang CD that was the only Wu Tang CD, so he had a monopoly on that CD as well. Just an all around scumbag. I don't mind saying that. He raised the medication price for AIDS by 30%, or 30, not 30%, 30 times. That's a made up number, 30 times. But it was like a ridiculous amount. It wasn't, it was insane, and he should never have been able to do that. But by law, he was able to do that because he had the patent on that particular medication. And technically speaking, that was his profit maximizing price. Even if it's grimy, uh, he could justify it that way. But that's almost a failure of government. There should be. That's a normative thing to say that there should be or should not be, but there could exist a patent that does what that exhibits the reasoning I'm about to tell you, but also has like a limit on the pricing, the pricing possibilities. Okay. But in the absence of a patent, or so anyway, that's to say it's not necessarily more equitable that a patent or a copyright can increase equity. In fact, I think it often decreases it because it limits the amount of consumers that buy it and creates that weight loss. And we'll see that graphically in a little bit. But anyway, incentive. So the patent kind of solves an incentive problem. Essentially, your incentive to produce. So imagine that, or I don't know why I'm saying imagine. Here we go. Uh, so if there are, imagine you have fixed costs involved in creating a particular product. So you're in the race for a vaccine, right? And you have to research and develop for a year to get to that point. Okay. And let's say it's not as high profile as coronavirus. It's some other vaccine. The other day I read that like like 18 of 30 of the vaccines that are in like the standard packet of vaccines that you get were all created by like this one guy. Oh, also, if you're an anti-vaxxer, sorry that my take is like, I guess, political to you. Even what I just said is political to you. I don't mean this to be political. Sorry, I'm not. That's the. I'm not explaining myself further. If you're anti-vaxxer, that's fine. I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak to that. But I'm gonna I'm going to proceed as though vaccinations have some sort of positive externality and that there's a reason we would want them. And if you disagree, you can substitute in some other good. But let's say there's an industry with a high fixed cost, so like a R&D cost. Um, Producers expect to be compensated for their output, right? So you spend a year of your expenses creating this vaccine. Well, guess what? You're not going to give it away for free unless you can cover your expenses. Um, if you took everybody and you shuffled them over to producing this thing, and then at the end of the day you're not getting paid for it, you're not getting recognized for it in some way or another. Well, you're not going to want to do it. You're going to be SOL. So you want to make some sort of profit in order to justify your effort. Otherwise, you're essentially kind of a bad CEO, right? Someone who loses the company money and makes it unsustainable in the long run. And I think that's worse for everybody. Okay, so let's say that in this case we're not doing vaccinations. We're going to do songs. Okay, a little less political for some of you. Okay, so after so Metallica spends a lot of time writing "For Whom the Bell Tolls." It's an absolute banger, and everybody wants to hear it. So they put all their time and effort into creating this banger. And me, someone who has a computer and Napster, if you remember what that is, or MuTorrent, if you know what that is, or I don't know, something that you download music on, YouTube downloader, if you're into that. One second. Sorry, I had to lay the hammer down. But if you had some sort of software piracy program or music piracy program, and this is a true thing that happened in like 1999, there was a piracy program called Napster, uh, which that I have to explain makes me feel old, but it was a way of downloading songs one at a time. It was really, really bad software. Half the songs were viruses. But you could, in the span of like 3 hours, come up with a full Metallica album for yourself. Um, so, what well inferior to streaming, but cheaper than paying for a CD. Because back in those days, if you wanted to listen to the new Metallica album, you had to pay like 16, $17. It wasn't great. So getting like 10 albums was like $150. So people who were into music paid a lot to be into music. Nowadays, I have 3,000 albums I haven't paid for, or I pay on a monthly basis for, or more specifically, my old roommate's dad pays on a monthly basis for. Um, so I essentially can get music for free, and I pay for my old roommate's other service or something. I'm a freeloader, I guess. That's the free rider problem. So anyway, Metallica gets paid nowadays by Spotify or Google Play or YouTube Music now, um, or iTunes for streaming. But back in the day, people would just burn a CD, as it was called, where they would just spend 3 hours downloading illegally all these songs, and it was really setting the industry back. Okay, but to burn a CD would only cost like 3 hours of your opportunity cost, whereas to make that CD for Metallica would cost, instruments. It would cost tons of their songwriting time and effort. Probably some of them had to go to lessons to learn how to drum because they weren't very good drummers like Lars Ulrich. Um, um, there was touring cost and uh, you know, there's packaging cost and mixing costs, and it's a very expensive industry to produce one CD, and then after that, the variable costs are very low. But for me, as the individual who logs on to Napster, or you don't even have to log on, but you know, pecks away at my keys on Napster, searches Metallica, For Whom the Bell Tolls, you know, free. I'll get that. I'll get that song. It'll take like 7 minutes to download, but I'll get it, and then I'll share it with all my friends for free. It doesn't really cost me anything besides my opportunity cost of time. But back in those days, I was 8 years old, so what was I doing with my time? So Metallica essentially had to, put a lot of fixed costs into it, and then you had like millions of people all over the world downloading their stuff illegally, sharing it with their friends. Um, so that Metallica was never being compensated for their fixed cost. Essentially, they were operating at a loss. The price of the CD was dropping, probably even below break even price, um, causing a real issue with with music production. Or that was the argument. I don't know how much their revenue model is based on CDs, selling CDs, because they're doing fine without it now. But at the time, that was the argument that they were making, that it was disincentivizing artists from creating and trying. It was pushing them into churning albums more quickly at a lower fixed cost and that kind of thing. Okay, but without the ability to limit who can produce these songs, it's very easy for anybody to just steal the music, sell it for free or for lower than the album. So imagine I set up shop outside of FYE, which again doesn't exist, but a brick and mortar retail store that used to sell CDs or albums or whatever you call them, like little discs that have music on them. Damn, I'm old, guys. But I could set up shop right outside of FYE, charge $10 instead of $15 for a Metallica CD. I make a killing. Nobody's going to go in there and buy the Metallica CD. The record label is going to be completely furious at me. But without the patent, I have perfect legal grounds to do this. So that's where the patent comes in. If I can just do that, then we're essentially in perfect competition where everybody with a laptop can enter the market for Metallica albums, which is a problem, right? We don't want that because that drives the the break even price that drives price to the break even price, which is not great for Metallica. That they're essentially they're gonna have to price their goods at the minimum average total cost for me. So they're basically charging their price at my opportunity cost for 3 hours. So so basically Metallica would have to incur a fixed cost less than or equal to what an 8-year-old does for 3 hours. So obviously we don't want Metallica doing that. We want Metallica putting time and effort into their songs like grown ass adults, right? So in theory, this could happen where anybody can burn the CD and push the market into perfect competition, and Metallica would be price takers on their own product. So that's no good. That's no good. You don't want that because you want Metallica to have initiative and have incentive to create. You want artists to do their thing, right? So the government essentially induces a monopoly. So in the long run, no one makes any profit. So Metallica, who has incurred the fixed cost, will not have incentive to incur that fixed cost, and will essentially not produce anything, or will produce essential garbage, not garbage ink, just straight garbage. That was a joke for you Metallica fans. Okay. So Metallica will operate at a loss. So they'll never write a song if they know that in the future that they're going to operate at a loss. So why would they do that? They'll rather become like, I don't know, frozen yogurt salespeople or something like that. So the government, in order to stop this, uses the patent system and copyright system so that Metallica can sue you if you. They can sue you if you. They can sue you if you burn their CDs and sell it, or burn their CDs at all. Okay, that'd be a liable offense. You could be charged with a giant fee. So that's why a patent system exists, to provide the artist legal grounds to penalize people who undercut them on something that they need incentive to create.